Hello, I'm Alan. So we're going to return to T2, the Gyokuro Kin from Den's Tea. Path of Cha gave me some different brewing recommendations. If you remember, or you can go and watch it if you haven't, I was experiencing some harshness and some fishiness during some of the steeps, the way I had originally done it at 6 grams to 200 milliliters. The reason I had first done it that way is because I've been drinking the May leaves for almost a year. I bought a whole bunch, so I had already had time to kind of play with the parameters, and I just found that I really liked it at that ratio, 6 grams, or what was it, 6 grams to 100 milliliters, so I was doing 12 grams in this particular pot. What they invited me to do was reapproach it with a different set of parameters, which I think is totally fair. Just like each person is different, each tea is different, so I can't give it... The best way to honor it is to try different approaches if the first one didn't work. So what they recommended was 1 gram of leaf to 30 milliliters of water. So for this, since I know that my pot is 200 milliliters right there, I just branched that out to 6.66 grams, so I weighed out 6.7 because my scale only does to 1 decimal point. So 6.7 grams of the Gyokuro Kin. And details about it, I'll just leave for the other video. Don't need to go over all of that. They'll be in the details, the description too. So let's get everything ready here. So what we're gonna do is 6.7 grams of leaf at 65 degrees Celsius water. They recommend that the first steep we do for 2 minutes. So let's get that going. Start the timer. And I'm learning I should probably pour gently because it's been causing foam. So I'm going to be very gentle. Try not to stir it too much. There we go. Excellent. And now we wait. It's kind of fun to watch the leaves open up and dance around as they absorb it, and it's like a dance. It's kind of cool. It's almost like it's bubbling by itself. It's interesting because just all these little tiny bubbles everywhere. I'll discover if that's a part of Gyokuro or just a part of this particular leaf. I've only had 3 now. I've got a lot that I've purchased, and so I've only tried 3 of them. Their Suime was the 3rd, and so I'll just kind of, as I drink through them, find out what is kind of consistent between them. Are they all foamy? Are they all whatever, what they all are? Okay, we're minute 33. Here we go. It's definitely not as thick when I do the 12 grams versus the 6 grams. So this is just over half the amount of leaf as I normally do. So I anticipate it would be thinner. Let's see, still smells about the same. This is definitely the particular steamed spinach that reminds me of, like, from Frozen. As you're defrosting frozen steamed spinach, is that particular smell. It's a lot more transparent, like I can see through to it. Kind of a yellowish green color. Let's get this going. So the nice thing is that at least how Path of Cha recommended is the temperature is the same. We're just adjusting the brewing time in this. So let's go ahead and taste it. Cheers. Instantly there was kind of that side, which is like tannins or astringency. It's very bright right around there. But still kind of, definitely not as smooth as the Mayleaf Sakumidori. There's not as much umami, and it's more just steamed spinach. And only because I haven't fully experienced bitterness, I'm wanting to say this is, but take it with a grain of salt as I'm a noob when it comes to tea. Very light mouth stickiness of actual astringency of the feeling of that. Kind of tart, actually. A little bit tart. All right. So next for the second steep, they recommend decreasing it to 30 seconds. Same temperature, but only 30 seconds. So let's go ahead and get that going. I'll be gentle again with the pour. Still really bubbly, but I can't pour it any more gently. Kind of get all the leaves in there. It is filling up. The leaves are expanding and filling that up pretty good. And here we go. And if you remember from the first video, I mentioned that this has a lot of crumbs in it, and the crumbs are coming through. Could be my particular filter, but I imagine if you used the Gaiwan, it would still have the same thing. It is a darker green than the first time. The first steep was a little bit lighter yellow. Now some of the chlorophyll is coming out a little bit more in this one. And so it's not necessarily due to the increased temperature. The original way I brewed it, it's simply that the leaves have rehydrated and now they're able to release some more stuff. So that's kind of the logic behind doing a shorter steep time, is it's now awake. So, all right, let's see what the second steep is. It's for 30 seconds. Cheers. It's very mild. I imagine it's because I'm used to twice the amount of leaf. But it's not as harsh. Still just very mild astringency, feeling it on the sides of my tongue. It's drinkable. All right, now for the third steep, and we'll see how many I can go. They just said between 30 and 45 seconds, so I will do 45 just to see what kind of pushing its parameters will do. So we're going to do 45 at 65 degrees Celsius. Excellent. The nice thing about brewing tea is the silence. It allows you to kind of be present with it and just moment to think. Don't fear the silence. All right. Still some particulates making its way through the filter. Definitely runnier, as expected. Less leaf, plus it's the third steep now. The aroma is definitely being used up. Can still pick it up though. Still kind of a nice green, but paler and definitely more see-through. All right. Put that back on. Cheers. Very bland. On this third one. So Density actually had some brewing recommendations too, so I'll be curious to try that. Let's see, their Gyokuro Kin, they recommend 3 ounces of water to 2 grams of leaf at 160 Fahrenheit. I'm not sure what that is Celsius. But they recommend 1.5 minutes for the first steep and then 180 degrees for 30 seconds. So similar to where they do a longer first steep and then drastically reduce it the second steep, but they recommend actually increasing the temp that second steep. They also mentioned that it's only good for 2 steeps, and I can kind of sense that at this type of parameters. Where you're starting with hot water instead of room temp. I mean, this is the third one, and it's pretty bland, so I can see why they'd only recommend 2. Now, the nice thing is, I'm not getting any of that fishiness, and the harshness I had with the first way I was doing is drastically reduced. So, what that's teaching me is that not every... Even with the same style of tea, so I've just been doing Gyokuros, that the leaves are distinct. If the first way didn't work, try it another way and see if that allows them to be the best version of themselves. So I think as I go through, I'm going to keep doing it my favorite way of the Okumidori, where it's 6 grams per 100 milliliter, because I just really love that rich, brothy umami. And then if that doesn't work, I will try it a second time with the vendor's recommendations. These are pretty close to the vendor's recommendations, so I'm going to just accept Path of Cha's, and I won't worry about doing a third video. But they recommended just 2. This third one, I can see why, is just kind of bland. They recommended 1.5 minutes and 30. I did 2 minutes and 30. At 65, so we'll just kind of accept it like that. But I am still curious about what I'm deeming the encore, letting this tea sing one more time. So even though the leaves have given up, I've still got a vessel full of every steep. So let's see, let's give it a chance to perform one last song and see what the blend tastes like. The blend is a lot more fuller bodied, basing on the fact that it's harder to see through. So that's a nice thing. Let's see if it's nice in the mouth. What I do like is there's bubbles, but it's not foamy. So I don't know if I'm liking when there's foam in the Gyokuro, but anyway, cheers. very drinkable, very mild. So I would say that if I was presenting a Gyokuro to somebody who's never had it before, I would just do their Suimei, only because that one seemed, of the three I've had, a little bit more representative. There's a lot more flavor than their Kin. Partly because I'm able to use a lot more leaf without it going harsh, but it's not as in your face as the Okumidori. That one is no joke. It is it is intense, and I love it. So that may become a feature that for my personal taste, start going for. What can handle a large amount of leaf for a cold brew, 14 minutes, and still be very luscious and lovely. So it's definitely drinkable this way. So I would say that if you find yourself with this tea, or you're drinking with a friend who has this tea, try either the first way I brewed it, 6 grams to 100 ml, but don't drink each progression. Just brew it, get it into a vessel, and only drink the mixed version, because that hid the fishiness, it hid the harshness, it was just all around a very nice drink. This way, there was only 3 steeps, and while I can taste it, I don't think I would be able to tell it's a Gyokuro. I could tell it's a green tea, but I couldn't really tell it's a Gyokuro. It's just very mild, very light astringency, so nothing too off-putting by it, but it's also not exciting. But anyway, thanks Path of Cha, that invited me to reapproach my relationship to this leaf, and has kind of given me an idea of some ways I can do it for future leaves too. I've kind of got my baseline that I'm consistent with and recognize, and if that approach doesn't work, then I will go with the vendor's recommendations and see if that creates a better tea. I would say that it did. No fishiness, very little harshness on the very first one, but none in the second ones, and then in the final encore, it is very approachable. So, alright, well, I'm going to sign off and have a good day.